In the dark shadows, in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read the ancient tomes. The order of the Abracast. We are the brave and the bold.
Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt. Potiphar, an Egyptian who was one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard, brought him in front of the Ishmaelites who had taken him there. The Lord was with Joseph so that he prospered, and he lived in the house of his Egyptian master. And when his master saw that the Lord was with him and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did, Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. Potiphar put him in charge of his household, and he entrusted to his care everything he owned. From the time he put him in charge of his household and of all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian because of Joseph. The blessing of the Lord was on everything Potiphar had, both in his house and on his field. So Potiphar left everything he had to Joseph's care. And with Joseph's charge, he did not concern himself with anything except the food he ate. Now, Joseph was well built and very handsome, and after a while, his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, "Come to bed with me." But he refused. "With me in charge," he told her, "my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns he entrusted to my care. No one is greater in this house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except for you, because you are his wife. How then can I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" And although she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her and even to be with her. One day he went to the house to attend to his duties, and none of the household servants was inside. And she caught him by his cloak and said, "Come to bed with me." But he left the cloak in her hand, and he ran out of the house. When she saw that he had left his cloak in her hand and run out of the house, she called to her house servants and said, "Look," she said to them, "this Hebrew has been brought to us to make sport of us. He came here to sleep with me, but I screamed. And when he heard me scream for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house."
The Abracast.
Goddamn
Occult,
bitches.
History, conspiracy, and violence.
Hey everybody, we're recording this evening live from the bedchamber of the Egyptian wife. I'm John Towers, and this is the Abracast. Thank you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I'm going to try to get a chunk of this Genesis stuff out of the way. We are very close to being able to take a break from all this Genesis stuff. A couple things. Okay, here it is. So we have, I'll do this one first. We're coming up on our 4-year anniversary here at the Abracast. So the Abracast existed in many forms for many, many years. It used to be like a sidekick show to like one of my other podcast projects for a long time, but its current thing, what it has become today, the show that you guys love and that I love, and I love that you love it today, started on June 28th, 4 years ago. June 28th. 2016. I remember it like it was fucking yesterday. So I thought that was fun, and because it's kind of like the official birthday of the show as it is today. I mean, if you're a Patreon or Subscribe Star person, you could get some of the audio from those old early days, perhaps. But yeah, so I wanted to bring it up. I wanted to see if you guys had any kind of, I don't know, feedback, or if you have a favorite episode you want to share, or if you have any, I don't know, questions for me. Maybe we could do something special. I don't know. But anyhow, I just decided to throw it out there. Speaking of Patreon and Subscribe Star, we have a new knight in the vessel of the art. Everybody welcome Luke aboard. And this is to all my Patreon and Subscribe Star people. You guys raise your glasses up in the air. If you're generous enough to have a vessel of the art, raise it up in the air, whatever you're drinking. Just toast, here's to Luke and all the Patreon and Subscribe Star people. Without you guys, the show isn't possible. So if you have something that you would like to share about the show, whatever, reach out to me. I'm not a hard guy to find. There's a contact page on the website. So just use that, or you can email directly, towers113@gmail.com. Don't tweet me. I never look at Twitter. So, I mean, you can tweet me if you want. It'll just be like 3 years until I see it. Okay, so with all that being said, let's get back to Genesis. The cold open was Genesis 39, 1 to 13. So we're just going to pick it up. So he's being framed. This is like a 90s R&B hit or something. What was it? It wasn't me. I'm sorry. I'm usually pretty good at, if I bring up a musical thing, if I bring up a song on the show, I'll put it on the Spotify playlist. If you go to Spotify and search Abercast, you're going to get two things. You're going to get the show, of course, because we're on Spotify. But the other thing you're going to get is a playlist. And what that playlist is all about is whenever I bring up a song on the show, or sometimes I spontaneously break into song, I'll try to remember to put it on the Spotify playlist. So it's like this really eclectic, bizarre mix of music. But I refuse to put that fucking song on my playlist. Sorry, I'm just not going to do it. All right, back to it. Bible. We're going to check it in the Bible. Genesis 39. Where we're going to pick up at here, 16. She kept the cloak beside her until her master came home. And then she told him the story. That Hebrew slave you brought us came to me to make sport of me, the old in and out governess. But as soon as I screamed for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house. And when his master heard the story from his wife saying, "This is how your slave treated me," he burned with motherfucking anger. Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. But while Joseph was there in prison, the Lord was with him and showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all those held in the prison, and he was made responsible for all that was done there. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care, because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. Genesis 40, the cup breaker and the baker and the candlestick maker. Sometime later, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt offended their master, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was angry with his two officials, and the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and he put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard at the same prison where Joseph was confined. And the captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph, and he attended to them. After they had been in custody for some time, each of the two men, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were being held in prison, had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own. And when Joseph came to them the next morning, he saw that they were dejected. So he asked Pharaoh's officials, who were in his custody with him in his master's house, "Why do you look so sad today?" "We both had dreams," they answered, "but there is no one to interpret them." Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams." And the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream, and he said to him, "In my dreams I saw a vine in front of me, and on that vine were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, it blossomed, and its clusters ripened into grapes, and Pharaoh's cup was in my hand. And I took the grapes, and I squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I put the cup in his hand." "This is what it means," Joseph said. "The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift you up your head and restore you to your position. And you will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand, just as you used to do when you were his cupbearer. But when all goes well with you, remember me and show me kindness. Mention me to the Pharaoh and get me out of this fucking prison. I was forcibly carried off from the land of the Hebrews, and even here I have done nothing to deserve being put in this dungeon." When the chief baker saw that Joseph had given him a favorable interpretation, he said to Joseph, "I too had a dream. On my head there were 3 baskets of bread, and on the top basket were all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating out of the basket on my head." "What this means," Joseph said, "the 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift off your head and impale your body on a pole, and the birds will eat away at your flesh." Bummer. I would have liked to go first. Now the 3rd day was Pharaoh's birthday, and he gave a feast for all of his officials, and he lifted up the heads of the chief cupbearer and of the chief baker. In the presence of his officials, he restored the chief cupbearer to his position, so that he once again put the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he impaled the chief baker, just as Joseph had said to him in his interpretation. The chief cupbearer, however, did not remember Joseph, and he forgot him. Well, dun dun dun. Genesis 41, Pharaoh's dreams. So we're switching from the Bible. So this isn't Genesis 41, but we are switching from the Bible to Ginsberg's Legends of the Jews, Pharaoh's dreams. Properly speaking, Joseph should have been gone free from the dungeon on the same day as the butlers. But he had been there for 10 years by that time, and he had made amends for the slander he had uttered against his 10 brethren. However, he remained in his prison 2 years longer. Blessed is the man that trusteth in the Lord, and whose hopes is the Lord. But Joseph had put his confidence in the flesh and the blood, and he prayed the chief butler to have him in remembrance when he should be well with him, and make mention of him to the Pharaoh. And the butler forgot his promise, and therefore Joseph had to stay in prison for 2 more years than the years originally allotted to him there. The butler had not forgotten him intentionally, but it was ordained of God that his memory should fail him, when he would say to himself, "If thus and so happens, I will remember the case of Joseph when conditions he had imagined were sure to be reversed, or if he had made a knot as a reminder, an angel came and undid the knot, and Joseph did not enter his mind. But the Lord saith in an end to darkness." Joseph's liberation was not delayed by a single moment beyond the time decreed for it. God said, "Thou, O butler, you didst forget Joseph, but I did not." And he caused Pharaoh to dream a dream that was the occasion for Joseph's release. And in his dream, Pharaoh saw 7 kine, well-flavored and fat flesh, to come out of the Nile, and they all together grazed peacefully on the brink of the river. In years when the harvest is abundant, friendship reigns among men, and love and brotherly harmony. And these 7 fat kine stood for 7 such prosperous years. After the fat kine, 7 more came out of the river, ill-favored and lean-fleshed, and each had her back turned to the others, for when distress prevails, one man turns away from the other. For a brief space, Pharaoh awoke, and when he went to sleep again, he dreamed the second dream about 7 rank and good ears of corn, and 7 ears that were thin and blasted with the east wind, and withered cars swallowing the full ears. And he awoke at once, and it was morning, and his dreams dreamed in the morning are the ones that came true. This was not the first time Pharaoh had these dreams. They had visited him every night during a period of 2 years, and he had forgotten them invariably in the morning. This was the first time he remembered them, for the day had arrived for Joseph to come forth from his prison house. Pharaoh's heart beat violently when he called his dreams to mind on waking, especially the second one about the ears of corn disquieted him. He reflected that whatever has a mouth can eat, and therefore the dream of the 7 lean kine that ate up the 7 fat kine did not appear strange to him. But the ears of corn that swallowed up other ears of corn troubled his spirit. He therefore called for all the wise men of his land, and they endeavored in vain to find a satisfactory interpretation. They explained that the 7 fat kine meant 7 daughters were to be born unto Pharaoh, and the 7 lean kine he would bury the 7 daughters. And the rank ears of corn meant that Pharaoh would conquer 7 countries, and the blasted ears, the 7 provinces, would rebel against him. About the ears of corn, they did not all agree. Some thought the good ears stood for 7 cities to be built by Pharaoh. And the 7 withered ears indicated these same cities would be destroyed at the end of his reign. Sagacious he was, Pharaoh knew that none of these explanations hit the nail on the head, and he issued a decree summoning all interpreters of dreams to appear before him on pain of death, and he held out the great reward and the distinctions to the ones who should succeed in finding the true meaning of these dreams. In obedience to his summons, all the wise men appeared, the magicians and the scribes that were in Mizraim, the city of Egypt, as well as those from Goshen, Ramesses, Zoan, and the whole country of Egypt. And with them came the princes, officers, and servants of the king from all of the cities of the land. To all these the kings narrated his dream, but none could interpret them to his satisfaction. Some said that the 7 fat kine were the 7 legitimate kings that would rule over Europe, and the 7 lean kine betokened 7 princes who would rise up against the 7 kings and exterminate them. The 7 good ears of corn were the 7 superior princes of Egypt that would engage in a war for their overlord, and would be defeated by as many insignificant princes who were betokened by the 7 blasted ears. Another interpretation was that the 7 fat kine were 7 fortified cities of Egypt in some future time to fall into the hands of 7 Canaanitish nations who were foreshadowed in the 7 lean kine, according to his interpretation. The second dream supplemented that first. It was meant that the descendants of Pharaoh would reign sovereign authority over Egypt at a subsequent period, and he would subdue the 7 Canaanitish nations as well. And there was a third interpretation given by some. The fat kind were 7 women who Pharaoh would take to wife, but they would die during his lifetime, their loss being indicated by the 7 lean kind. Furthermore, Pharaoh would have 14 sons, and the 7 strong ones would be conquered by the 7 weaklings. This is a Cain and Abel allegorical mirroring. I just pulled that right up out of my ass. As the blasted ears of corn in his dreams had swallowed up the rank ear of corn. And the fourth, thou wilt have 7 sons, O Pharaoh. And these are the 7 fat kine. These sons of thine will be killed with 7 powerful rebellious princes. But then 7 minor princes will come, and they will kill the 7 rebels, avenge thy descendants, and restore the dominion to the family. The king was a little pleased with this interpretation, as well as the others which he had heard before. And in his wrath he ordered the wise men, the magicians, and the scribes of Egypt to be killed, and the hangmen been ready to execute the royal decree. However, Myrod, Pharaoh's chief butler, took fright, seeing that the king was so vexed at his failure to secure an interpretation of his dreams that he was on the point of giving up the ghost. He was alarmed about the king's death, for it was doubtful whether the successor to the throne would retain him in office. Oh, selfish bitch. He resolved to do all in his power to keep Pharaoh alive. Therefore he stepped before him and spake, saying, I do remember 2 faults of mine. This day I showed myself ungrateful to Joseph, in that I did not bring his request before thee. And also I saw thee in a distress by reason of thy dream, without letting thee know that Joseph can interpret dreams. When it pleased the Lord God to make Pharaoh wroth with his servant, the king put me in word with the house of the captain of the guard, me and the chief baker, and with us there was a simple young man, one who despised the race of the Hebrews, slave to the captain of the guard, and he interpreted our dreams to us, and it came to pass, just as he interpreted it. So it was, therefore, O king, stay thy hand of the hangmen, and let them not execute the Egyptians. The slave I speak of is still in the dungeon, and if the king will consent to summon him hither, he will surely interpret thy dreams. All right, so we're jumping to the Bible, 41:14. So Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and he was quickly brought from the dungeon where he had shaved, and he had changed his clothes, and he came before Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I had a dream, and no one can interpret it. But I have heard it said of you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it. I cannot do it, Joseph replied to Pharaoh, but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, in my dream, I was standing on the bank of the Nile when out of the river there came up 7 cows, fat and sleek, and they grazed among the reeds, and after them 7 other cows came up, scrawny and very ugly and lean, and I had never seen such ugly cows in all the land of Egypt. The lean, ugly cows ate up the 7 fat cows. They came up first. But even after they ate them, no one could tell that they had done so, so they looked just as ugly as before. And then I woke up. And in my dream I also saw 7 heads of grain, full and good, growing on a single stalk. And after them 7 other heads sprouted out, withered and thin, and scorched by the east wind. The thin heads of grain swallowed up the 7 good heads, and I told this to the magicians, but no one could explain it to me. Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, the dreams of Pharaoh are one and the same. God has revealed to the Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good heads of grain are the 7 years. It is one and the same dream. The 7 lean, ugly cows that come up afterwards are 7 years, and so are the 7 worthless heads of grain, scorched by this east wind. They are the 7 years of famine. It is just as I had said to Pharaoh. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. 7 years of great abundance are coming throughout the land of Egypt, but 7 years of famine will follow them. Then all the abundance in Egypt will be forgotten, and the famine will ravage the land. The abundance in the land will not be remembered because of the famine that follows. It will be so severe. The reason for the dream was given to Pharaoh in two forms, so that the matter has been firmly decided by God, and God will do it soon. So now let Pharaoh look for a discerning and wise man and put him in charge of the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh appoint commissioners over the land to take a fifth of the harvest of Egypt during the 7 years of abundance, and they should collect all the food in all of these good years and are coming and stored up the grain under the authority of Pharaoh to be kept in the cities for food. This food should be held in reserve for the whole country to be used during the 7 years of famine that will come upon Egypt, so that the country may not be ruined by the famine. And this plan seemed good to Pharaoh, and he and all of his officials. So Pharaoh asked him, "Can we find anyone like this man in whom is the Spirit of God?" And Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Since God has made all of this known to you, there is no one so discerning and wise as you, and you shall be in charge of my palace, and all my people are all to submit to your orders. Only with the respect to the throne will I be greater than you." So Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I hereby put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt." And then Pharaoh took his signet ring from his finger and put it on Joseph's finger. And he dressed him in the robes of fine linen and put a gold chain around his neck. The gold chain. He's still a slave. He's just a real classy one. And he made him ride in the chariot as his second in command, and people shouted before him, "Make way, cunts!" Thus he put him in charge of the whole land of Egypt. The Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I am Pharaoh, and without your word no one will lift a hand or foot in all of Egypt." Pharaoh gave Joseph the name Zaphenath-Paneah, and gave him Asenath, daughter of Potipherah, the priest of On, to be his wife. And Joseph went throughout the land of Egypt. Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the Pharaoh's presence, and he traveled throughout Egypt during the 7 years of abundance, and the land produced plentifully. Joseph collected all the food produced in those 7 years of abundance in Egypt, and he stored it in the cities. In each city he put the food grown in the fields surrounding it. Joseph stored up huge quantities of grain, like the sand of the sea. And it was so much that he stopped keeping records of it because it was beyond measure. Before the years of famine came, 2 sons were born to Joseph. See, he had 7 years. Born to Joseph and Asenath, the daughter of Potipherah, priest of On. Joseph named his firstborn Manasseh, and said, "It is because God has made me forget all my troubles and all my father's household." The second son he named Ephraim. And he said, "It is because God has made us fruitful in the land of my suffering." The 7 years of abundance in Egypt came to an end, and the 7 years of famine began. Just as Joseph said, there was famine in all of the other lands, but it was the whole land of Egypt there was food. When all Egypt began to feel the famine, the people cried to Pharaoh for food. Then Pharaoh told to all the Egyptians, "Go to Joseph and do what that motherfucker tells you." When the famine had spread over the whole country, Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold grain to the Egyptians. For the famine was severe throughout Egypt, and all the world came to Egypt to buy grain from Joseph because the famine was severe everywhere.
Learn more at abracast.com. Get bonus content by signing up for the mailing list. Get all that plus many exclusive episodes by supporting the show at patreon.com or subscribestar.com.
Hi, I'm Lisa. I like coffee, bonfires, walks on the beach, old books. But you know what I really like? The paranormal. Strange stories and experiences, psychic phenomena. So, if you're interested, come join me and bring an open mind and a healthy dose of skepticism. And we'll see what happens.
Hey, just a quick reminder, June 28th is the Advertise 4-year anniversary. Opening up my mailbox in case anybody wants to share your favorite episodes or favorite moments, or, I don't know, shittiest episodes or shittiest moments, or if anybody has any questions they would like to ask me. I've never asked for questions before, so if anybody has anything they want to ask me, now's the fucking time. Also, a quick note I forgot to mention at the beginning of the show. I don't think you're going to see the amount of episode. Remember, this is only a weekly thing. So if you get more than one episode a week, those are bonuses, right? So, but at the same time, I still like to manage everybody's expectations. I don't think we're going to miss one. But if we do miss one, it's not pod fade. I'm going on vacation. I'm actually getting out of the studio. Coming up soon. I don't want to say too much. I'm going to do a summer solstice thing. So, me and the wife hanging out, doing summer solstice stuff. You know what I'm saying. So, yeah. But I think I got everything covered. I think I got a good plan. But, so you guys I owe phone calls to. Patreon and Subscribe Star supporters at the Vessel of the Art level. There's a $10 tier. You get access to me every month on the phone. So I owe, besides vacation, besides all this mad water of the art magic ritual business, I'm behind on my calls. So please forgive me. I'm going to get caught up eventually with you guys. If I owe you calls, you're going to get them. Just hang tight. Okay, with all that being said, Genesis 4:2. Remember Joseph's brothers? Yeah, man, those motherfuckers, they're on their way to Egypt. When Jacob learned that there was grain in Egypt, he said to his sons, "Why don't you shady motherfuckers just keep looking at each other?" He continued. "I've heard that there is grain in Egypt, and go there and buy some for us, so that we may live and not die." 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to buy grain from Egypt. But Jacob did not send Benjamin, Joseph's brother, with the others because he was afraid that harm might come to him. So Israel's son were among those who went to buy grain, for there was a famine in the land of Canaan also. I don't think it's worth going through some of the stuff that's in my brain. Now Joseph was the governor of the land and the person who sold grain to all of its people. So when Joseph's brothers arrived, they bowed down to him with their faces on the ground. And as soon as Joseph saw his brothers, he recognized them. But he pretended to be a stranger and spoke harshly. "Where do you bitches come from?" "We come from the land of Canaan," they replied, "to buy food." And although Joseph recognized his brother, they did not recognize him. And then he remembered his dream about them, and he said, "You are spies. You have come to see where our land is unprotected." "No, no, my lord," they answered. "Your servants have come to buy food. We are all the sons of one man, your servant, are honest men and not spies." "No," he said to them. "You have come to see where our land is unprotected." But they replied, "Your servants were 12 brothers, the son of one man, who lives in the land of Canaan. The youngest is now with our father, and no one is no one, and one is no more. Oh, so they're talking to him and they're saying, we got another brother, but he's fucking dead. Joseph said to them, it is just as I told you, you are spies. And this is how you will be tested. As surely as Pharaoh lives, you will not leave this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of your number to get your brother. The rest of you will be kept in prison so that your words may be tested to see if you are telling the truth. If you are not, then as surely as Pharaoh lives, you are fucking spies. And then he put them all into custody. For how long? 3 days. On the third day, Joseph said to them, focus, do this and you will live. For I fear God. If you are honest men, let one of your brothers stay here in prison, while the rest of you go and take grain back for your starving households. But you must bring your youngest brother to me, so that your words may be verified and that you may not die. This they proceeded to do. They said to one another, surely we are being punished because of our brother. We saw how distressed he was when he was pleased with us for his life, but we would not listen. That is why this distress has come to us. Reuben, who is the best sandwich maker out of all the brothers, says, didn't I tell you not to sin against the boy? But you wouldn't listen, and now we must give an accounting for his blood. They did not realize that Joseph could understand him, since he was using an interpreter. He turned away from them, and he began to weep, and then he came back and spoke to them again. And he had Simeon take down from them, and he bound before their eyes. Joseph gave the order to fill their bags with grain, and to put each man's silver back in his sack, and to give them provisions for their journey. After this, he was done with them. They loaded their grain on the donkeys and left. The place where they stopped for the night, one of them opened his sack to get feed for his donkey, and he saw the silver in the mouth of his sack. My silver has been returned, he said to his brothers. Here it is in my sack. And their hearts sank, and they turned to each other trembling and said, what is this that God has done to us? When they came to their father Jacob in the land of Canaan, they told him all that had happened. And they said, this man who is Lord over the land spoke harshly to us and treated us as though we were spying on the land. But we said to him, we are the honest men, and we are not spies. We are 12 brothers, sons of one father. One is no more, and the youngest is now with our father in Canaan. When the man who is the Lord over the land said to us, this is how I will know whether you are honest men. Leave one of your brothers here with me. Take food to your starving households and go. But bring your youngest brother to me, so I will know that you are not spies, but honest men. Then I will give your brother back to you, and you can trade in the land. As they were emptying their sacks, there in each man's sack was a pouch of silver. When they and their father saw the money pouches, they were frightened, and their father Jacob said to them, you have deprived me of my children. Joseph is no more, and Simeon is no more, and now you want to take Benjamin. Everything is against me. Then Reuben said to his father, you may put both of my sons to death, but I do not bring him back to you. Entrust him in my care, and I will bring him back. But Jacob said, my son will not go down there with you. His brother is dead, and he is the only one left. If harm comes to him on the journey you are taking, you will bring my gray head down to the grave in sorrow. All right, we're flipping back to Ginsberg. The second journey to Egypt. When the supplies bought in Egypt were eaten up and the family of Jacob began to suffer with hunger, the little children came to him, and they said, give us bread that we may die not of hunger before thee. The words of the little ones brought scorching tears to the eyes of Jacob, and he summoned his sons and bade them to go again down into Egypt to buy food. But Judah spake to him. The man did solemnly protest to us, saying that he should not see his face except our brother Benjamin be with us. We cannot appear before him with idle pretext. And Jacob said, Wherefore dealt ye so ill with me as to tell the man whether ye had yet a brother? Why did you tell him he had a brother? That's what he's saying. It gets real choppy sometimes. I'm sorry. It was the first and only time Jacob indulged in empty talk. And God said, I made it my business to raise his son to the position of the ruler of Egypt, and he complains. He says, Wherefore dealt ye so ill with me? And Judah protested again in the reproach, and he had initiated the Egyptian viceroy and their family relations with the words, Why, he knew the very wood of which our baby coaches are made, father. And he continued, If Benjamin goes with us, he may indeed be taken from us, but also he may not. It is a doubtful matter, but it is certain that if he does not go with us, he will surely die of hunger. But it is better not to concern thyself with that doubtful, and guide thy actions by what is certain. The king of Egypt is strong and a mighty king. But if we go to him without our brother, we shall all be put to death. Dost thou not know? And hast thou not heard that this king is very powerful and very wise? There is none like unto him in the whole earth. We have seen all the kings of the earth, but no one is like this king of Egypt. One would surely say that among all the kings of earth there is none greater than Abimelech, the king of the Philistines. Yet the king of Egypt is greater and mightier than he, and Abimelech can hardly be compared with one of his officers. Father, thou hast not seen this palace and this throne and all his servants standing before him. Thou hast not seen this king upon his throne and all his magnificence, and with his royal insignia arrayed in his royal robes with a large golden crown upon his head. Thou hast not seen the honor and the glory that God has given unto him. For there is none like unto him in all the earth. Father, thou hast now seen the wisdom and the understanding and the knowledge that God has given to his heart. We heard his sweet voice when he spake unto us. We know not, Father, who acquainted him with our names and all that befell us. He asked also concerning thee, saying, Is your father still alive, and is all well with him? Thou hast not seen the affairs of the government of Egypt regulated by him, for none asketh his lord Pharaoh about them. Thou hast not seen the awe and the fear that he imposes upon all of the Egyptians. Even when we went out from his presence, threatening to do unto Egypt as unto the cities of the Amorites, he exceedingly wroth by reason of his words. And then he spake concerning us as spies. Yet when we came again before him, his terror fell upon us all, and none of us were able to speak a word to him, great or small. Now, therefore, Father, sent the lad with us, and we will arise and go down to Egypt and buy food to eat, and we will not die of hunger. Judah offered his portion to the world in the world to come as a surety for Benjamin, but this solemnly he promised to bring him back safe and sound. And Jacob granted his request and permitted Benjamin to go down to Egypt with his other sons, and also carried them choice presents from their father to the ruler of Egypt, things that arose wonder outside of Palestine, such as murex, which is the snail that produces the Tyrian purple, and various kinds of balm, and almond oil, and pistachio oil, and honey, as hard as stone. It's like a fucking butter, like a hard candy. The furthermore, Jacob put double money in their hands and provided against a raise in prices in the meantime. And after all these matters were attended to, he spake to his son, saying, Here is money, and here is a present, and also your brother. Is there aught anything else you need? And he replied, Yes, we need this, besides that thou should intercede for us with God. And then their father prayed, O Lord, thou who at the time of creation didst call enough to heaven and to earth, and stretch themselves out farther and further towards infinity. Set a limit to my sufferings too, saying to them, enough, God Almighty give you mercy before the ruler of Egypt, and he may release unto you Joseph, Simon, and Benjamin. This prayer was an intercession not only for the sons of Jacob, but also for their descendants, that God would deliver the 10 tribes in time to come, as he delivered the 2, Judah and Benjamin. And after he permitted the destruction of the 2 temples, would grant endless continuance to the 3rd. This is that weird thing where they're like jumping in time. Remember I was tripping out on the last one of these episodes about how it was like Tarantino wrote it? Jacob also put a letter addressed to the viceroy of Egypt into the hands of his son, and the letter ran thus: from thy servant Jacob, the son of Isaac and the grandson of Abraham, Prince of God, to the Almighty and the wise King Zaphenath, the ruler of Egypt. Peace. I make known unto my Lord the God that the famine is sore with us in the land of Canaan, and I have therefore sent my sons unto thee to buy us little food, that we may live and not die. And my children surround me and beg me for something to eat, but alas, I am very old, and I cannot see with mine eyes, for they are heavy with the weight of years, and also on the account of my never-ceasing tears for my son Joseph, who hath been taken from me. I charged my sons to pass through the gate altogether at the same time when they arrived in the city of Egypt, and consideration the inhabitants of the land, that they might not take undue notice of them. And I bade them to go up and down in the land of Egypt to seek my son Joseph. Mayhap they would find him there. This they do, but didn't therefore account them as spies. We have heard the report of thy wisdom and sagacity. How then canst thou look upon their countenance and yet declare them to be spies, especially as we have heard thou didst interpret Pharaoh's dream and didst foretell the coming of the famine? We are amazed that thou in thy discernment could not distinguish whether we be spies or not. And now, O my Lord King, I send unto thee my son Benjamin, who thou didst demand of my other sons. I pay thee, and take care of him until thou sendeth him back to me in peace with his brethren. Hast thou not heard, dost thou not know that our God did unto Pharaoh when he took our mother Sarah unto himself? Or what happened to Abimelech on account of her? And her father Abraham did unto the 9 kings of Elam. That was World War Z, by the way. You can check that out in the feature topic links, Advertise.com. Now he killed them and exterminated their armies, though they had but a few men with them. Or hast thou heard what my sons Simon and Levi did to the 8 cities of the Amorites, which they destroyed on account of their sister Diana? Benjamin consoled them for a loss of Joseph, but then will they do unto him that stretches forth the hand of power to snatch him away from them. Knowest not thou, O King of Egypt, that the might of our God is with us, and that he will always hearken unto our prayers and never forsake us? I had called upon God to rise up against thee when my sons told me how thou didst act towards them. Thou and thy people, ye all would have been annihilated ere Benjamin could come down to thee. But I reflected, and that Simon my son was abiding in thy house, and perhaps thou wast doing kindness unto him, and therefore I evoked not the punishment of God upon thee. Now my son Benjamin goeth down unto thee with the other sons, and take heed unto thyself, and keep thy eyes directed upon him, and God will direct his eyes upon all thy kingdom. And I have said all now that is in my heart, and my sons take their youngest brother down to Egypt with them, and thou send all back with me in peace. This letter Jacob put into the keeping of Judah, charging him to deliver it to the ruler of Egypt. His last words to his son was an admonition to take good care of Benjamin and not leave him out of their sight, either on the journey or after their arrival in Egypt. And he bade farewell to him, and then turned a prayer to God, saying, O Lord of heaven and earth, remember thy sons and deliver them into the hands of the king of Egypt. O my God, do it for the sake of thy mercy, and redeem my sons and save them from their hands of the Egyptians, and restore their two brethren unto them. Also, the women and the children of the house of Jacob prayed to God amidst tears and entreated him to redeem their husbands and their fathers out of the hands of the king of Egypt.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Send an email or visit us on social media to let us know what you think about this topic. And please remember to leave a 5-star rate and review.
Hey, did you learn something? Did you laugh? Supporting me is a way for you to be a part of the Advercast and ensure its growth and sustainability. It also means I can create a normal schedule for shows and bonus shows, as well as the exclusive Fellowcraft episodes. By supporting the show, you are not only a listener, but you are a part of the show. You supporting the show gives me a way to offer fun rewards as a thank you for showing your appreciation and support for our projects. Do you have an idea for a reward that you don't see? Let me know. My supporters are my partners. I currently pay for you to listen to the Advercast. Not only do I pay the hosting bills out of my own pocket, I volunteer my time and talent to each and every episode of the Advercast. The price of books, the time and resources of reading and researching, the massive amounts of gin and tonic needed, the equipment it takes to record the shows, the time and resources it takes to create the bonus material, and the cost to maintain the internet presence. Is it worth your support? I don't know. I'm proud of the Advercast, and I feel like I'm improving all the time. In addition to creating the show that you dig and that you are excited about, I also have a full-time commitment and other obligations. So why financial support? All of the supporters help me focus my time on the quality and development of the podcast. And what if you can't afford, $1 or $3 or $10 or whatever a month? Believe me, I get that. There are many degrees of support, but if you can't support the show financially, please consider leaving a 5-star rate and review on your preferred podcast app. And don't forget that you can sign into the mailing list and still unlock a lot of bonus content. Thank you. I cannot put into words how much it means to me that you listen to the show each time I post a new episode. Your feedback, support, and love of the stories that we talk about here is what keeps me going.